world. My family is from long lineage of Christians from mom's side, and my father's side is from spiritists that believed in magic, although I never had much to do with it all. My mother told me that my grandfather took me once into their temple and I was offered somehow, but that's all I know. I talked to the thing that appeared in front of me. I wasn't really scared and was more curious than anything. I asked it if I could have powers. It said, "Yes, what powers do you want?" I said I want so everything I say can become true. It said that my wish was granted and did not ask for anything in return. The first thing I said was, "I know everything," and in that moment I had a glimpse of extensive knowledge. It started to hurt my brain, so I said to it to stop, and so it did. I said that I was God and nothing happened. I remember myself going back home, flying to my room that afternoon. I cannot recall much more of what happened during that day. Fast forward to when I was 13 years old. The kids in my street were playing something similar to the Ouija board, and with my sister. I was standing there watching. When the thing literally moved by itself, everyone was scared except for me. I started laughing and said I did that. It happened because I'm here. I don't know why I said that. That moment I noticed I had several personalities inside of me that would take control of my mouth and say things that I didn't mean or didn't understand. The time stopped and nobody could move, and I declared myself the Antichrist. As soon as this happened, people in my street, a crowded neighborhood in the 90s, came running up to me and started worshipping me. I had sex with several of the women present. And then something else happened. A bunch of UFOs showed up to greet me. A literal gray alien came out of a ship that was flying above me. I looked at it and ripped his ears off. I ate his ears, which came with half of his face and arms. They seemed pretty weak. When this happened, more UFOs showed up and I got pissed. I jumped like fucking Superman and started to destroy their ships as they started to fall on top my city and cause huge explosions. Many more things happened like this in my life. The time would stop, I would have sex with several women in a satanic fashion. Later nobody would remember anything but myself. When I finally understood this, I put a stop to it. Things got less crazy and I started to control myself. I started to see the future and say things I want to happen, how I wanted the world to be and how I wanted it to end. To this day everything I said is still happening and I still have my powers. There are some very specific rules for my powers to work. I have to be either very excited or very angry. I need to be in public or with people, and I have to actually say some words. A few of the powers I have that I can remember. I and the people around me would cry if they lied. I could make people do anything I said. I can make things appear. I can do almost any superhuman thing in the books. At this point I came up with a plan to hide my existence from the public, and I'm still in hidden to this day, waiting for the end of my plan to come into fruition. I have a few friends who know everything about this and have confirmed it to me several times. Who the hell am I? This is the only things I cannot answer. For the day. I recently moved right into the middle of the Mojave Desert in California. I naturally got into dirt bikes. There are miles and miles of trails out here, and we're like 30 miles away from any kind of city. There's a track where I live that's deserted of the time, but I don't really frequent that. I prefer trail riding. So out where I ride there's a lot flat land, and 3 big hills about a mile away from each other. Every time I ride I go a little further, I eventually made it to the third big hill. It was amazing, perfectly quiet, just the sound of the wind that never stops blowing around here. I hopped back on my bike to go a little further and I was overcome with this gut-wrenching terror that came out of nowhere. It felt like I was being watched, I guess. But I couldn't see shit, it's all mostly scrub brush and big rock outcroppings. So I shit my pants, and got back home as feel as I fucking could. That was about 2 months ago. Today I went out for my weekly ride, and I figured I would go back to the third hill. I decided that I was being irrational the last time I went there. The isolation must have gotten to me. Plus I've been riding a lot longer now, so there's no reason to be frightened. I go out and get to the first hill, stop and relax for a bit, smoke a cig and listen to the silence. I then got back on the trail and toot on up to the third hill. I wasn't even thinking about the last time I was there, everything was great, so I go even further. Past the third hill is just a lot more wavy smaller hills. And a lot of more giant rock things. I know people go out here sometimes because there were other tire tracks. But I spotted what looked like a cave entrance. Even if it wasn't a cave, someone could definitely fit under the rock. At the entrance of this opening there was a pile of rocks about the size of a hand, all stacked up pyramid style. I took note of that and kept going, but as I passed this thing I hear like a damned guttural croak or scream. It sounded like a raven but higher and loud as fuck. I knew the sounds my bike makes and it wasn't that. I rode so fast that I probably would have died if I crashed, got lost in those hills but eventually made it back. I didn't stop feeling that being watched sensation until I got back between the first and second hill, then it just went away. Got back home safely, probably never going that way again. There are stories in my area about the Blue Eyes, some kind of creature that supposedly lives around here. Not sure if it has any merit, but holy shit, sure felt like it. That's all. I have no fucking idea what could be out there, if anything. I need a riding buddy. This will probably be my first and last post here, considering I'm a lurker and not very familiar with the website. My boyfriend put the idea in my head to share some of my stories I have with /x/. I have quite a few to talk about, so if anyone's interested, I'm rather good at running my mouth. When I was about 6 years old, I lived out in the middle of nowhere in the Appalachian Mountains. We were 30 minutes away from any civilization, and our neighbors were antisocial and usually not my age. We were settling down one night when we all heard pounding on our door. We figured it was a pillhead, so we hid in the hallway. For the next 20 minutes I heard screaming and cries for help. The guy dragged his hands across our trailer and was scratching and shit. Probably was on meth now that I think about it. After he finally shut up, the entire family piled outside onto our front porch to see blood everywhere. Bloody handprints, bloody footprints, general spatter. It looked like the guy had been mauled or exploded or something. The worst part was the blood wasn't quite that deep, dark red. It was pinkish almost, and had a gel-like consistency to it. My parents went in to call the police, and I went to the bathroom. Our bathroom was a hellscape unto itself, but that's a story for another time. Our trailer was prolapsing because it was nearly 40 years old, so the half of the house that the bathroom was in only had /some/ power. I look up in the bedroom next to the bathroom, and see the blood had spattered everywhere in there as well. It was of the ceiling, dripping down on my head. I screamed for my mom, and ran out, but when I ran back in, the blood had mostly disappeared. The only thing it clung to were these posters that my parents had up around the room. When the police had got there, the blood on the outside had fully disappeared, and I imagined my parents got reprimanded for wasting the policeman's time since it's so far out. All that was left were slight handprints. OP here. To answer some things asked, I have no idea what that blood stuff was. I know it sounds cheesy, but for most of my life I've chalked it up to a bear attack or just not really thought of it. We'll be posting another story in a different reply. This story is more lax and closer to a fever dream if anything. I still doubt myself on this a lot, but I genuinely think it's real. I think at this time I was about 8, and as stupid Southerners do, we were sat around the TV during the evening. Then the trailer walls started rumbling. My mom said something to the effect of they found us, and we all piled into the hallway of the trailer, which was the most stable part of the house. I remember the TV went to the DVD screen and all the lights had turned off from all the rumbling, coating the entire living room and hallway in blue. I remember turning to my mom and asking who found us, and she replied, "The aliens." Sounds tropey, but this is where my memory cuts it. My memory jumps to us being in our old car. It was covered in this opalescent black substance, like acid. I remember turning to my mom and saying, "What happened to the police officer?" She replied, "The aliens got him." You'd think this would be a running joke, but my mom said this in a fully serious tone. Still could be, who knows. After that I remember I wasn't quite right. I began seeing the static as an overlay whenever I looked around. I later found out that this was visual snow. I would also see desaturated shapes and images whenever I'd go to sleep. I most commonly would see trees, a rainbow pinwheel type thing, or just dots. I think these are hypnagogic hallucinations? But I have no fucking idea, to tell you the truth. This also got worse with age, but I'll cover that more later. For a while I was completely fine, or at least I think I was. My memory eludes me. I think I will post one more time tonight, and post another story tomorrow. Coming back with another post before I go to bed tonight. This was a smaller happening, but a few months after the blood happening happened. Me and my parents were driving back home from town. It's a far drive, so it ended up being twilight before we actually got home. My mom looked out the window and saw this orange thing. It was an oval, fully orange with white and red lights. 8-year-old me thought it was the fucking Nickelodeon blimp. Was mega sad when I couldn't see the letters. It was kind of funny, but blimps wouldn't usually pass through our area ever because I assume the mountains and trees are too much, plus it was the middle of the night. I made a drawing of it, and put it on the fridge. My parents are drunk and have it put somewhere because it's a really old drawing, but I think I could drudge it up eventually. Now here I'm gonna give you a few options for what story you want to see next. General happenings on the landscape before I was born. The white deer happening. The noises in the woods. I'll end up talking about all of these eventually, but I will talk about one tomorrow in specifics. Good night. Someone requested general weird happenings last night. This might end up being a multiple post thing. My family isn't that great. They're drug addicts and sort of deranged. My mom decided after our first family cat died we were going to